Hey, it's Drew, and I just recorded an amazing episode with Armen Najarian, who is the CMO of Agari. It's a cybersecurity company, and they become very mission-driven. And it's amazing how that mission drove brand and how that brand drove new product development, how they this episode covers how do you find your purpose, how do you roll it out, how do you make some noise, build awareness, and the power of doing all of those things. So give it a listen.
Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, featuring the sharpest minds in marketing, inspirational case histories, and weekly insights you can apply to your business. Find out why top CMOs rank this podcast among their favorites. Now, here's your host, Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
All right, so here we are at the world headquarters of Agari with Armen Najarian.
Here we are.
You
make us sound like such a big company. World headquarters.
I mean, how many people are you?
We have 170 people.
That's a lot of people.
And we're growing, yes.
And you're growing. All right. Well, anyway, welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Drew. Happy to be here.
So, of course, we have audio and video going at the same time. It's always a complication, mainly for me, not for you, because I've got to sort of deal with both of those things. But a couple things. I listened to a podcast with you that you did with Bernie Borges.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. It was great preparation for the show. I will link to it in the show notes, and if anybody wants to listen to that one first before they talk, they'll this is the graduate course version of what you talked about.
Very good.
All right. So, but before we get there, who are you?
Great question. Yes, who am I? So I'm a bit of a... not a purple squirrel, but I have a bit of an interesting background for being a Silicon Valley B2B marketer. I started off marketing consumer brands.
What?
Yes. And I started off, so I will test you.
Yes.
So if you knew pre-1980 kind of ethnic food in the United States, Chinese food.
Oh, Chinese food.
Chinese food.
Oh,
what's the brand?
God, it was something King.
Yes, there's two brands, Chungking, and the sister brand La Choy.
La Choy, yes, and
Right.
Chungking.
So
okay.
I was the brand manager for La Choy and Chungking.
Oh, okay, awesome.
And prior to that, Wesson Cooking Oil with Conagra Food. So I started off in consumer brand marketing. After business school, had this kind of, didn't know what marketing was all about and kind of found myself down that path, and it was very interesting, and it was a general management, you run a P&L, but then this was the late 90s, and I saw the tug being pulled into technology. I was like, hey, I got to go and break into technology. And so I made the break, and I started off with some small companies and have worked my way up over the years, and here I am.
So I did notice that you went to USC, a business school.
I did,
yes.
But
But you went to school in Massachusetts. How did you end up at SC?
I grew up in New England, and USC made me the best offer.
There you go.
And it did not involve crew or soccer, so pretty cool, huh?
Well, okay. So, yeah, SC has taken some grief in the last, recently.
They have.
And having grown up in Southern California as a UCLA Bruin fan, I sort of, I never had a fondness for SC, I have to say.
Okay.
For all the SC listeners out there, well, I apologize now. Okay, so very interesting, and that's when you grow up in brand management on packaged goods product, the first word is brand management.
Yes, it is.
And you really learn the discipline of marketing, from defining the target, defining the brand, figuring out what the essence is, distilling it down to a 30-second or 15-second commercial. Is any of that relevant to B2B marketing, particularly in Silicon Valley?
100% of it's relevant.
And it's relevant. I was talking to my buddy Noah Breyer, the founder of Percolate, who's just a brilliant guy. And the reason it's relevant is the fundamentals of marketing haven't really changed.
That's right. They haven't.
They haven't.
The principles I learned 20 years ago in a completely different sector fully apply to B2B technology marketing.
So when we talk about brand management, we talk about understanding what it is. Let's see, I'm looking at your San Pellegrino. I'm looking at this Kirkland sort of off-brand brand.
Private label.
Private label brand. And thinking about some of the great brand stories, I remember a good friend was working on P&G on Gain, and I loved how they distilled that brand down to smell as proof of clean.
Yes.
I mean, it's just brilliant essence of the brand, right?
Yes.
So anytime you saw a person smelling it, that was Gain.
Yes.
There's a tremendous discipline that goes into it. Okay, so Fast forward, here you are, you arrive at Agari like a year ago.
1 year ago.
And what did you find? What was the circumstance when you got here?
So Agari at the time was an 8-year-old business that had found its way into an emerging hot space, right? Advanced email security. With a company that had, from a marketing perspective, invested good dollars over the years to try to build a sustainable demand generation engine, and hadn't really put much investment into the other half of the marketing discipline, the brand.
So in terms of the demand generation engine that they had,
Yep.
was it driving leads into the pipeline, marketing qualified leads? Could marketing be considered a revenue driving engine at that point?
Almost.
Almost.
It was very close.
Okay.
But it was ready to grow up.
Right.
So again, we crossed a big revenue milestone this past year. I won't name the number since we're a privately held company.
Right.
But we are an emerging Silicon Valley company growing at 50% a year. And so the principles that were in place from a demand gen perspective a year ago looked like that of a much smaller business, and they were ready to turn the corner.
So growing at 50%, there must be, either you're getting amazing ratings from the analysts, or what was if marketing wasn't driving that growth, what was driving that growth when you arrived?
I would say we are beneficiaries of a couple of things. One is an emerging space that is top of mind for every CISO. So what do? We stop phishing attacks from destroying businesses and killing brands. And every chief information security officer on the planet does not want to be the one who has to answer to their board because their company got popped. So that's number one. Number two, I would say, is a great product. We've got some really good technology with a great founder story, which I can tell you about. And that's helped as well.
So great technology,
Yep.
First and foremost, solving a problem in a growing market, that helps.
Yes.
Rising tide lifts all ships. The one thing that was interesting to me when I looked at Agari from a technical standpoint was model the good.
Yes.
And I thought that was such an interesting notion, because when you think about security, you almost always think about the bad stuff and mapping them bad. And you guys actually take a different approach.
There's a whole narrative in the enterprise security space around zero trust.
Right.
You see this everywhere, and it assumes everyone is bad and the exceptions will be good. So we've inverted that. And just as you said, we understand what good sender to receiver mail behavior looks like, email behavior looks like, and we've modeled that. We see that 3 trillion times a year.
And is that truly is it differentiated, or is it just distinctive? Are the other brands that have that same kind of capability, or is this truly a point of difference?
It's truly a point of difference.
Okay, so, and that's not necessarily true for a lot of brands.
Yes.
So where brand often comes in is when you're just, you're lucky enough to create something that's distinctive, if not. But so you have a product differentiation. Okay. You get here, you have a different kind of product, you have a demand generation engine that is helping with that, but you see something's missing.
I do, because the broader enterprise security space is so noisy. There's 2,000 businesses selling, peddling their wares in this
Right.
space, and it's a competitive space. Everyone wants a piece of the budget.
And everyone says, because I think I looked at one point 26 different security companies, cybersecurity companies, and they all said they were the leader in X,
Yeah.
and then they all were doing FUD factor marketing.
Yes.
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 Fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yes.
Scare, scare, scare. Another
Yeah.
study of another breach. Stop. Call us.
Yep. Yes. So we had to invert that, and so fast forward.
Yes.
You mentioned brand promise. We don't sell fear, right? Our brand promise is that Agari gives you the confidence to open, click, and trust anything in your inbox, right? So that's a message that I think we should all be able to identify with. We want to be able to do business unencumbered, and that's a promise of hope.
So so trust your inbox is the line I saw on the website.
Yep.
And that's sort of an expression of it.
Yep.
And when I read that, to me, I feel like, yes, that's an important thing, but I felt like, how could you own that? Because isn't that what every cybersecurity email company is going to promise, is that it's about trust? Is that, I don't know. I was trying to figure out where the differentiation of that was.
Yeah. So there's a whole build-up to trust your inbox. To your point,
Right.
is a manifestation of a lot of work that we've put into the brand, and that's one way to express it. We've built campaigns around that, but it's much, much deeper than just that one tagline, Drew.
Yes, and I know that, and we're going to talk about those things. But I just wanted to challenge that a little bit, because I love the language. I
Yep.
want to trust. And obviously inbox is a big problem, but I was just curious about how you own it. And the answer could be you stick with it for a long time. That would be part of it, is if you want to own something, you have to own it for a long time. I mean, State Farm is still using that same good hands thing 25 years later or whatever. Okay.
Yep.
And that speaks to brand.
It does.
Which is different than demand gen.
Yes.
Because demand gen, you sort of keep optimizing and changing and so forth, and you say, here's another message, let's see if that clicks.
Here's another tactic, here's another message. It's performance marketing.
Right.
And it's really important, right? Every B2B company has to do performance marketing, has to build the funnel, has to make sellers happy, and they also have to invest in building a halo around the business, and that's the brand.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how you got to your bigger brand promise, which I think is really cool. So stay with us. Did you know that Renegade Thinkers Unite was ranked number 2 of the top 10 podcasts for CMOs by Crackerjack Marketing? Wow, we're really honored. Now, we couldn't do that without amazing guests, and we've had some amazing CMOs on this show, and also terrific listeners like you all. If you like what we do here, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player. That way, you'll never miss an episode. Also, as a special thanks, I'd like to send you a free ebook on Renegade Thinkers. Now for that, just email drew@renegade.com. Now let's get back to the show. Okay, we're back, and my guest is Armen Najarian, and did I say that correctly?
Najarian.
You
got it.
Yeah,
So
okay.
close.
No, I know. This is becoming a running joke on the show, is that if I can butcher a guest's name at least once, it's just...
I'll feel welcome then. All
Yeah,
right.
I know, it's really bad. But Armen is I got down with it easily.
You got it.
Okay, so... take us back when you first get here. What was the process for discovering your why?
Good question. The process. It was a very comprehensive process, and having done this before twice, I knew that I could not go off into a hermetically sealed room with my marketing organization and then emerge 3 months later with the answer, with the Rosetta Stone. It had to be an inclusive process, and it had to involve the entire executive team, or at least most of the executive team. It had to involve even members of our board of directors, some customers, some partners, even some analysts. And so the process was a very systemic process that took us through a 3-month journey where we did a lot of introspective work.
Mainly like qualitative interviews, people, third party?
Many qualitative interviews with a lot of those constituents I just mentioned.
Right.
And certainly reaching out into the community. We did no quantitative work for this particular project.
Right.
We didn't have that luxury of budget or time. But we did enough qualitative work that we felt we got a good finger on the pulse of the collective wisdom of the crowds, if you will.
And why, I know the answer to this, but I really want you to state it. Why is it so important to be inclusive of employees when you're beginning a rebranding exploration?
It's a really important thing to do because you want people's fingerprints on it, because ultimately the manifestation, the durability of that brand sits in the hands of the community. It doesn't sit in the hands of marketing. And if people have their fingerprints on the creation of this brand, they're going to have 100% ownership of it.
Right. They will take responsibility for it. They will feel like they are empowered and part of an organization that is doing something more than just selling widgets.
That's correct.
Okay. As part of this research, did you also do customer research, and were they part of this community?
They were. So we did some select customer interviews and partners that we treat just like customers. So in the mix, we probably had 6 or 7 conversations with customers and partners.
And that's really important. Why?
Well, we drink our own Kool-Aid a bit too much here, and especially in Silicon Valley. And so you absolutely want a point of view on the actual buyers and the practitioners and the users of your product. And without that, our view would be skewed.
So here's a question. When you've gone through this 3-month exercise, you come out the other end, you have your why. We'll talk about the why in a second.
Yep.
Do you go back to employees and your customers before the launch and say, here's where we are, everybody on board?
In this case, we did not.
Okay.
We included a good cross-section of folks, which we talked about early enough on in the process where we got some good insights. And from that, there was a core group that did not include customers that then kind of carried the ball to the finish line. So we did not provide sneak previews in the journey, and I've seen it done that way. We just chose to not do it that way.
And so now you have why? And when I came into the headquarters, in addition to seeing the statement on the wall, which I love, and I'll take a picture of it and include it in the show notes, but I expected to find people wearing capes.
Yes.
Because it's very super heroic. I mean,
Yes.
it's more than just your typical why. I mean, you're saving the world.
We're saving the world. We're on a mission, and people believe it. And we do. We truly believe it. Our board members believe it. Our management team believes it. Our rank and file employees, we all believe this. And so our mission, as you saw, which is on the wall in big letters,
yes,
right?
Is
Agari protects digital communications to ensure humanity prevails over evil.
Prevailing over evil.
There we go.
You know, and it was, I flew out here today on American, and they have all the Marvel movies, but I was prepping for this interview, so I couldn't watch any of them. But I love that. It does sort of lend itself. I'm imagining that employees felt really good about that, and potential recruits. As you're growing as fast as you are, you have to hire a lot of people. I think the unemployment rate in Silicon Valley is like 2%.
It's about that low, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, absolutely. People ultimately, it's a war for talent here. We have a lot of big employers that pay, big salaries here in the Valley. Now, those companies aren't for everyone, but if you're looking at pre-IPO growth companies, at least I'll speak for myself. Right. I want to align with a company where I believe in what mission that company is on. And I would say that many, if not hopefully all, of the employees that we've attracted here to Agari believe that. They want to be part of something bigger.
And how did you introduce it to employees?
So the rollout of all of this was orchestrated, right? And so we everything culminated on December 4th, 2018. And that was that was kind of day one for the new Agari brand. We paired the brand unveiling and all the messaging that we just described, the mission, the brand promise, and all the attributes. We combined that with some big product launches. So it was an Uber launch, if you will, product launches, brand launch, and we did that all in Europe. We actually brought it all the way over to an industry conference called Black Hat in the UK, in London. And we flew most of the executive team over there because it was such a big deal. We had a lot to talk about and a lot to unveil.
So I want to put a big punctuation point on this because a lot of times I believe brands sort of launch a new brand, they change their logo a little bit, there's a new tagline, but they don't introduce a new product that helps reinforce that idea. And I think that's a big mistake and a lost opportunity because while design matters, and it does, but it's ultimately people are going to make a decision. There's products that you're selling.
Yes. And
so launching a new product and launching a new brand is a great a 1-2 punch that in my mind is quite effective. So you're at this Black Hat conference. What did you do to sort of make sure you got more than your fair share of news out of it? Because that's a big part of spreading the word, right?
It's huge. So we leveraged social media in a big way. We got most of the exec team to do kind of first-person selfies from interesting spots throughout the city. I think you might have seen mine from a ship on the river, and that was pretty cool. And so that was one tactic that worked really well, kind of a LinkedIn takeover. Other things that we did is we pre-booked a lot of media interviews, media sessions with journalists in the UK, and that really, really helped quite a bit. I'd say the third thing is our PR teams really got behind proactively pushing out messages. Actually, the third thing that we launched, in addition to the products of the brand, is we launched a big piece of research. So we unveiled a new threat actor report that we called London Blue. It was from a threat actor group based in the city of London. And so that got us actually into the front page of the Financial Times, which, you know this, Drew. How do you buy something that valuable? You just can't.
You can't. And I want to sort of, again, put a punctuation point on this. So a new brand story, a new product, and research that undoubtedly set up either the problem that you're solving or some aspect of it that was proprietary. And so often brands hope to get PR but don't do anything that's newsworthy.
This is true.
And you really combined a number of things there to get some quality press.
It was a perfect storm.
There you go. And this was in London. From a creative standpoint, because of PR, was there any sort of big message thing? Did you take over how did you make sure that everybody at Black Hat saw Agari?
Yeah, so interesting. So we did a takeover. So as fortune would have it, the conference hall was adjacent to the River Thames, and we are the location that Agari kind of took over was a docked ship right on the river. And so we had the opportunity to fully brand the entry to that ship and many of the attributes of that ship. So all the members or the attendees walking into the conference would walk by the ship and see this company called Agari that maybe they've heard of before and maybe they hadn't. And that added to the intrigue. And so on the show floor, we had a big presence as well.
Right.
So the combined effect of those 2 points really did make a difference for those attending.
You literally made a big splash. Yes, you did.
Nicely done, Drew.
Yes, thank you. Yes, that's why they pay me the big bucks.
There we go.
So you have the big ship, which is like a giant piece of outdoor that makes sure that nobody coming to that conference can miss you.
That's correct. Yeah.
You have a booth inside to continue the story. You're wrapping it in PR with the research and so forth. So that's a big awareness spike. One would think, at least among everybody at this particular trade show. How many people were at the show?
2,000.
2,000, but 2,000 CISOs or
very focused, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, in our space, yep.
Right, so this was as good a place as any to unveil the brand.
It was.
Okay, let's wrap up. From that launch, was there a lesson learned or anything that just from that standpoint, when you look at it and you go, that really worked, I wish we had done this?
Of something we didn't do.
Yeah, maybe
yes.
at the launch.
Yes. Well, it was ambitious to take everything over to London, right? Again, we're a relatively small business, right. And so to kind of pick up all this intellectual property and people and move it over there, we pulled it off. We did it. We might have been a little bit more successful, perhaps, right? Doing it locally. We didn't have that luxury.
Right.
So I'd say, hey, you play with the hand that you're dealt, and we did a good job with that. I would say we probably could have done a better job even engaging with the analyst community leading up to the event. We had some, I'd say, follow-on analyst engagement as we launched this new brand and the set of products and the research. It would have been great to augment that with some support leading into the launch event.
Well, and I think that's a great place to pause and take a break, because you can't do everything all the time. No matter how big you are always going to be resource constrained. So you had some priorities, you followed through, those you delivered on. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
You've been listening to another great interview on Renegade Thinkers Unite with Drew Neiser. But the value doesn't end there. As a listener, you can download a free ebook from Drew, Renegade Thinkers, interviews with 11 trailblazing CMOs any business can learn from. Top marketing thought leaders and proven executives from Time Warner, American Express, and Chico's, and others. Get your free copy at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook. For listeners only at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook.
Okay, we're back, and my guest is Armen Najarian.
You got it.
Yay!
Third time's a charm.
I know.
There we go.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my. So, who is the CMO of Agari, and we've been talking about a successful launch campaign. Let's talk about how did you, from a measurement standpoint, and when did you start to measure, and when did you feel like you had a success on your hands?
The digital markers were very important. So that was, I would say, that is the bedrock of our measurement. And certainly a lot of the PR, inbounds that we got.
So the digital, be specific.
Right.
What are we talking about?
So,
website traffic.
So yes. So part of the brand launch was an entirely new website, an all new website. And with that, yes, we took a baseline measurement of, you asked about what Agari was like a year ago when I joined. Mm-hmm. We had the baseline. The long story short is post-launch, when we looked at, post-launch for 6 weeks versus the trailing 3-month average, we raised a few things in our digital footprint. One is unique users, we raised by 70%.
It's a good number.
Time on site, we raised by about 40%.
That's huge.
And then conversion from visits to a form fill or raise my hand for a demo, we increased that by 25 points. So, good success stories.
Yeah, those are really good numbers, and they speak to the power of wow.
Yes.
They really do.
They do.
They speak to the fact that for this 2,000 people, you really were big in that moment.
We were big for that moment, and it wasn't just the 2,000 people. It was the community around the world, right? That we also got the message out to, and started to see, right, this digital engagement. But yes, having that 2,000 on site to see and feel and interact with was super helpful.
And so, interestingly though, and this is fun to think about, is one of the key metrics for this was still lead capture.
Sure was, yeah.
And could you in any way sort of say, all right, we did this and we called it brand, and it drove this amount of leads into the system relative to a demand gen that specific that you could see would say, is there any way of creating an apples and apples comparison between those two efforts?
It's funny, depending upon which company you go to. In fact, when I joined Agari, when we were looking at the budget, someone on the team asked, well, Armen, what do you consider events, big trade show investments like RSA or Black Hat? Don't you consider that brand? And I thought about it. I had never considered that to be a brand investment. I had always thought about events as demand gen. Stepping back, though, I can see why the question was asked, right? There's just as much of a halo and an impression that you're making upon the community that, hey, calling that 100% brand, even though, yes, you're having person-to-person interaction, and there's probably direct attribution to pipeline, which we absolutely measure. I would say, the world is not so clean anymore, right?
It isn't. It never was that clean.
No, but it's even less clean now.
Right. That's true. It's dirty. But so what's interesting to me as you're talking, I'm thinking about where you put these buckets. It makes me laugh in some ways because if you don't know marketing and you saw Google and search and you say, wow, I can put $1 here and I can measure a click all the way through. Why not spend all my money on Google? And then you very quickly find out that there's only so much you can spend on Google because if they don't know who you are, people don't click on it, Google pushes you down anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's not cost effective. So awareness, in theory, an increase in awareness should improve your Google performance.
And that's the belief. And I think you can abstract that beyond just Google.
Right.
And this is really the crux of this discussion, is to say, yes, without a doubt, Drew, you made the insinuation that, we need to keep our sellers happy, right? And by that, we've got to fill their pipeline with good quality leads, right? That convert into opportunities. Table stakes, we have to do that. However, if we don't also invest in some of these maybe less quantitative, but certainly just as important halo activities, messaging, the creatives, the impressions, it's going to be hard in the long run to support and sustain increasing levels of pipeline.
It is. It's really hard. And the reason that you would want to build awareness besides is, as you said on with your show with Bernie, is one is suddenly the sales guys walk into a room and they're not foreigners, that the people understand, hey, I know your business. I wanted to talk to you guys.
I wanted to talk to you. I've heard of you. I've heard about you.
Right.
Word of mouth is huge in that community.
It just reminds me, I think, of a Business Week ad that ran in the 70s or 80s where there's a grumpy-looking guy and the headline says, I don't know you. I don't know your company. I don't know what you do. I don't want to meet with you. Get out of my office.
Yeah. and that's, we've seen that before. Right. But, hey, if you can reduce the number of times you see that to a little bit of a welcome reception, then that goes a long way.
So, to me, that measure, it is measurable. You could do an awareness study, and track, and a brand health study. Do you have one?
We haven't. In my packaged goods days, we would do aided and unaided awareness and recall. We don't have the luxury of that type of budget today, but there are ways to approximate that. So yes, one of the projects for this year is to hack an aided and unaided awareness.
So talk about that, because one of the things, so I'm working on book number 2. Everything is really solid up to, so I've got this 3-1-1-3, 3 targets, 1 story, 1 plan on a page, and then 3 metrics. And I'm trying to get each metric for employees, customers, and prospect, 1 blended metric. So it's hard, really, really hard. And it's a little quixotic, I admit it, and I probably have to settle for something a range of things that you can choose from. But I am curious, what thinking have you gone to just get to some proxy measures for awareness?
Very guerrilla, but I think it could work. And so, for example, historically in consumer marketing, you did a consumer intercept in
Yep.
the shopping mall.
Yep.
We have talked about doing an intercept at the next big trade event,
Yeah.
right in the front, right?
Sure.
So before people walk in, right, and we have third-party independent people that we've hired saying, hey, when you think of the next-gen secure email cloud or you think of advanced email security, who do you think of, right? So unaided recall.
Right.
See what they come up with. So that's one vehicle that we've thought about that I think would actually give us a pretty good sense of are we making the right impression in the minds of our audience.
And I think that's absolutely right. And the interesting thing, and one of the things that we really advise our clients on a lot is whenever you can do research like that, you can always do some other within that to get information that you can then use to make it PRable. So it's not just that moment in time.
This is true.
Right? And so you can ask them an awareness-related question, but you can also get on a hot button question.
That's right.
If you're thinking in terms of newsworthiness.
It's a good point. It's a really good point, yes.
And so you can make that efficient.
You'll get maybe 3 questions and then you
right,
gotta
but
move
that's
on.
fine.
Yeah.
But you can get more if you give away a nice T-shirt. I mean,
or Starbucks gift card.
Yeah,
or whatever,
Starbucks
yes.
gift card. You got someone and they're right there. And I think trade shows as a research opportunity are really underutilized.
Yep.
And it's a huge opportunity because people are there to learn. And if you have some kind of give.
Yep.
Hey, I need 2 minutes of your time to ask her 5 questions. I'm going to give you a Starbucks gift card, which you can redeem at our booth because we have a Starbucks cappuccino machine, right? Whatever. You can do that. So I think but you have to have the will, and then you have to do it again the following year.
This is true.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. You're on the treadmill then, right?
Right, because you have to be able to show.
Yep.
So, and the other reason that we talk about the importance of having that kind of research, even if it's just a few questions, is at some point the economy is going to slow down. And at some point you're going to need to have brand health metrics to sort of know where you are.
Yep.
As those leads start to slow down, as budgets start to slow down. Now, I would imagine your business is one of those businesses where people got to keep spending money.
We like to believe that.
Right.
Yes. And I think there's some truth to that.
Right. The only difference is if the economy contracts in a lot of companies that are, sort of fake, phony financing, whatever, then they'll be gone. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. So in this brand journey that you've gone, you're now, you've launched it in November. You've won an award for your new brand.
We did.
Sales are continuing to hit target.
They are.
So no one's saying, why are we still talking about brand now?
Not yet.
Not yet. And how do you... So, there's always the old stories of, the reason why awareness matters. That there's this story. The reason why Nissan is in the U.S. instead of Datsun, as it was when we were growing up, is the chairman of Nissan walks into a hotel and says, "I'm the chairman of Nissan. I'm ready for my room." And they say, "Well, who's Nissan?" And,
I hadn't heard this.
Yeah, and that was the moment where he said, "Okay, we're going to spend the $150 million so that I don't show up somewhere."
Interesting.
But
right.
There is an ego attached to working for a company that people at the country club have heard of.
That's right. That's right.
Right? And so to some extent, that's why some brands take out billboards on Highway 101 to make sure that everybody in this community, including all the VCs, are aware of it.
Or get on the dasher boards at the San Jose Sharks
there you
for a
go.
season like I did at my last company.
Yes, exactly. And that people look at it and they sort of say, why?
Yep.
And this comes back to Byron Sharp and have you read How Brands Grow?
I have not.
You'll enjoy it. You'll read it and
out.
say you'll believe most of his stuff. Okay, I'm wondering. Let's wrap up with sort of in all of this. We got a group of CMOs listening. Sort of 2 do's and a don't if you're about to go through this process.
Do plan before acting. Very important. Do adequately fund it, right? So I think it's important to treat this like any other major corporate initiative, not marketing initiative, but any other corporate initiative that needs legs. And so fund it accordingly. Treat it like like one of your biggest trade shows and fund it at that level. And then, as I mentioned earlier, absolutely make it inclusive, right? Don't do this in a vacuum. Right. The failure rate, I think, would be significantly higher if you tried to go it alone. So I'd say do all those, and then don't. What's a don't? Don't try to resist the temptation, at least initially, to try to figure out all the metrics. Though we talked about some really good ideas. And we're at the time now where we're kind of 4 months post. Now's the time to start, figuring that out. The digital metrics are easy. I think some of these recall metrics, we'll work into these, and
right.
we'll figure that out as we go along.
But right at this moment in time, there's enough success and enough momentum that you were able to create that you feel confident that you can sort of re-up the budget for this. And then that begs the question: where does this money come from?
Great question. So when I built my 2019 budget, I literally have a brand bucket, I have a demand bucket, and I have a couple of other buckets. But this brand bucket is, I will tell you, on a percentage basis of the overall marketing spend, headcount's the third one. Brand is about 20 points of the overall investment that we're making into the business. And so, and these are distinct. These are not trade shows, right? This is actual either brand media. This might be design, right? We increasingly use the services of a design agency, or other strategic messaging that wouldn't necessarily be campaign-specific messaging. So yes, we're investing here. We've taken a bit of a leap of faith and committed and doubled down to the investment of brand in addition to the performance marketing, the demand gen investments that we make.
Do you think that it's possible to have a campaign that is purpose-driven, that delivers demand, that delivers brand and demand?
Of course. Without a doubt, right? And again, that's where the beauty of this is.
Right.
One begets the other, right? So yes, if you invest in a brand, let's just go back to your billboard. So who's done a great job at this is Zoom. We use Zoom here at Agari, and we're big fans of the product. So they have the benefit of a really strong product experience. But I think their messaging is amazing, right? Meet happy.
I love it.
And you see those up and down the 101, and even if you've never used Zoom before or don't even know what it is, it's kind of an interesting concept. What is this Meet Happy all about? So yes, I do believe the investment in brand, in the case of Zoom, is directly benefiting.
And just in case,
pipeline.
just to reinforce this, I had Janine Pelosi on the show. She's the CMO
nice.
of Zoom.
Excellent.
We talked about that. It's killing it. And they do different outdoor types in different markets,
Sure.
but it's really been effective, and it has driven demand. And it also, I think I got out of her that it also improved their Google results tremendously too, because people clicked on it faster. And, thanks for doing a shout out, because Zoom's a fan of Renegade Thinkers Unite. How about that?
It's like one big community, right?
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
Wow. Thank you so much for being
Drew.
on Renegade Thinkers
Appreciate
Unite.
it.
And let's see. So I learned a lot. I'm not going to even try to summarize it now. Just again, thank you. Don't forget about brand. It does matter.
It does matter.
It does matter. All right. And to all of my listeners, until next week, keep those Renegade thinking caps on and strong.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.